Okay, we are here with Debbie Hunter Holen. She used to serve on the Aurora City Council. She's running for House District 42 vacancy, and I believe you're planning on running in November no matter what?
Correct.
Okay, great. For the State House seat in HD 42. We are at Village Green Park right now, which is basically Chambers and Mississippi, if anyone was wondering. So it's another interview. I just want it to be over, to be honest with you. But I am really excited to sit with you today, Debbie, because I know that you've been very active in the community for decades. So I want to learn more about that. And we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but there's one question that I really want you to answer, and that is, give us a time when you experienced some real adversity in your life. How did you handle that adversity? Did it change your perspective on the world? How did it change you, for better or for worse? And how do you face adversity? Give us an example and just run with it, whatever.
Boy, that's a leading question, isn't it? So I think the most adverse event in my life has been the attack.
Can you get a little closer to the camera, just so that we make sure that your voice is there?
Sure.
Okay.
Is the attack in 2020, July of 2020, July 11th to be exact, of 2020, when I did the thing that I always had been doing, getting up 6 o'clock, meeting my friend at 2nd and Oswego, the social path that goes into the Highline Canal. Met her there. We started walking, doing our thing. There was an individual standing by the tree who I acknowledged, because that's what you do when you're on the path. You say hello to people so they know that you know that they're there. It's a self-defense thing.
So you said hi to him.
I just kind of, did one of those, looked him in the eye
So you made eye contact.
Yep, I did. And the next thing I know is that I was hovering by a tree and cowering, and I don't know if I said the words or if I just envisioned that I said the words or what, but the words came: make him stop, it hurts. That's all I remember. Until.
And you were with a friend of yours?
I was with a friend of mine, yes. Until a day, 2 days after the incident, the next thing I remember is being wheeled down a corridor in the hospital. Bill was by my side, my husband, and there was an intern or whomever, a nurse, but I don't even know who it was, pushing me down the corridor. And that individual, a woman, said, "Aren't you excited? You're going to your new room." And as she said that, I looked down, and this finger was in a white cast.
Do you want to show the camera?
This
so that's
finger,
permanently kind of disfigured?
Yeah, with pins sticking through both sides. And this arm, my right arm, was in a sling. And as she was talking, she said, "Make sure you don't move your arm. Don't move your arm, because you will, it could heal imperfectly. So don't move it. Don't move it." And then I spent another 4 days in the hospital, and then was released and went home. So during the time that I was in recovery in the hospital, I kind of got bits and pieces of what happened. Because I still don't remember what happened. I know what happened, but I don't remember. I totally blacked it out. So I get home, and I could not go upstairs. Not allow me to walk up the stairs because of the sling in one arm and because I was compromised on my left arm, and there was no way to get up and down the stairs. without risking further damage to either side. So my son from Idaho came out, and he was, in conjunction with my next door neighbor, remodeled the bathroom downstairs and installed a shower so I could use the shower without having to go up and down the stairs, and then brought a bed down from upstairs to the great room that we added. And it's a beautiful room with
the room that we meet in.
Yes.
So we House District 42 Democratic Party up until recently would meet at her house monthly. So go.
Yes. So in that room, I slept in that room for probably 2 months while I was healing, and it has skylights. And sometimes in the middle of the night, I would wake up and there would be the moon and some stars, and it was very healing. And I felt myself going down 2 paths almost simultaneously. One was, poor me. This happened to me. How could this happen to me? What? Why would somebody do this to me? What the heck?
You can swear. It's
okay.
not cable.
What the fuck? Why would somebody do this to me? And I would wake up again. You know, I'd fall back to sleep. I'd wake up in the morning, and I'd feel awful, just depressed and gross, and my stomach was in knots, and I hated that. Sometimes I would wake up.
You physically felt awful
Mm-hmm.
and mentally, or just
physically and mentally.
Yeah. So the
Trashed.
mental thing was like, humanity is a disaster. Like, why would a
Right.
human do this to me?
Right. And I
Yeah.
was going through counseling, and then sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and see the moon and the stars, and I'm like, God, I survived this. You know, I have staples in my head. I had 32 staples in my head that had to eventually be taken out, and I have bumps on my head now. So I had to find a hairstylist that could work with that, because even though it doesn't hurt, it's very, very sensitive. So I had to find that. But okay, so I'm like, oh, I survived this. And I'd wake up in the morning again, and my head was clear, and I felt energetic. And I said, you know, part of this is me. This is on me to heal me and to make what happened positive, because I'm not going to let someone take that away from me. So I woke up, and then I started walking. I was walking around the park by myself. This happened on the Highline Canal. So the police chief, Chief Wilson, told me at one point that she would walk with me when I was ready. So one day I called her up. It was just shortly after that 2-month period.
Are you friends with Chief Vanessa Wilson?
Yes.
Okay.
But only professional friendship. Okay. And we've had lunch, and we go walking and stuff. But I called her up in conjunction with the person who was with me when the incident happened, and a really good friend who lives in Denver. And I called them both up, and yes, we will be there. They all met at the house, and we walked. We stopped by the incident where it happened. The chief said, Debi, we're here. Do you want to say anything? I said, I'm so glad I'm alive, and I'm passing this. So we walked 2 miles and came back. And then she said, when you're ready to do it again, I'm there. So about a week later, I called her and said, let's just do it again. And we did. And then after that...
Because you have you love walking outside. You love
yes,
you're
I've walked...
active with parks and recreation.
Yes, I'm active with that. But I'm also on the Highline Canal Conservancy. And I belong to...
You're on the Highline Canal Conservancy. This is a group?
Yes,
organization?
it's a nonprofit. It's a conservancy that takes care of the Highline Canal, and I just was recently appointed to that position. So I where was I? So I
Walking with Chief Wilson?
Oh, yeah, I walked with Chief Wilson again, and then after that, I started walking by myself by the incident where it happened. And every time I walked by, I felt better. I felt more empowered and more like this was just a thing that happened. So to answer your question, it's a process. It's a process of your mind over it's a process of how you handle what happens. You know, you can go down a million paths, and every time something has happened, I have eventually, you process it, you go through it, and then you come out on the other side with an attitude, this is not going to get me. And that's how I've handled adversity.
So kind of with strength and
and
the mentality that
determination and confidence. You have to have confidence in yourself because no one's going to give it to you. So that's how I do that. And going back to the walking thing, I belong to Denver by Foot and walk with them. And then there's an organization called Walk to Connect. And I do walking groups. I've done that for some time. And then there's Run the Edge. And they have a walking section of Run the Edge. And every year, the goal is walking or running the number of miles that is the year. So this year it's 22 miles.
Oh my gosh.
So I'll walk that this year. Last year I walked the 2021, but from the time that the incident happened on July 11th, I walked over 3,000 miles.
Wow.
And it's just so important for me anyway. Walking is where I get my sanity and my serenity. And along the Highline Canal, there's a bench that's dedicated to me, and has my saying of walking in solitude, sanctity returns.
Walking in solitude, sanctity returns. Oh. Huh.
I kind of live by that, but I made that up. But I think it's appropriate.
Well, everyone makes everything up. Yeah, the neurons just fire and then it just comes out. So yeah,
that's what came out.
You deserve the credit for it.
And that was a community bench purchased by some community members. One being involved in the Highline Canal Conservancy, and then one is a lobbyist. And when that happened, what she said to me is that we can only hope to be as gracious as you have been in recovery. Because I want the individual to serve the consequences, but I also want him to be able to, if and when he ever is released, to have the capacity to take care of himself. So I want him to have mental health, and I want him to get better. So I don't want, terrible person, blah, blah, blah. That adds to that angst, and that's so unhealthy.
Yeah. So you forgive him, and
yes,
you want him to get help, kind of thing. Yeah. The compassion is there.
And sometimes I say that I am very fortunate that this happened. It's very fortunate that it happened to me, because I firmly believe that having been a former city council member and still being involved in the community, that there was an urgency to find the individual, and he was found within it happened at 6:15, maybe right around there. He was found before 10 o'clock. He had been released from Arapahoe, I think it was Arapahoe County Detention Center with an ankle monitor. So, and he was caught on video from a backyard video. Of course, there's a fence there so they can see everything, but that kind of helped to get him. So he wasn't on the streets too long, so he didn't have the opportunity to do it to someone else. So I prevented someone else from getting hurt, and I'm very thankful about that. That I was the person that he hurt, because he's now in a place where he can't. Well, he's still in the detention center, waiting trial, which is just a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the ass for both the survivor and the perpetrator, because there is no such thing as a speedy trial.
So why is he waiting trial?
Well,
why is it taking so long?
Because he pled not guilty by reason of insanity. So it takes forever to get a state report back. So we're waiting for the state mental health facility to take him to Canyon City to get evaluated and do their thing, and then
just like a backlog or something. Is that why it's taking?
Well, as is everything, COVID is to blame for part of it. But the other thing is that there is a lack of quality people working with those who are in incarceration, and that adds to the backlog.
Well, I mean, it seems like, you took what happened to you and you kind of used it as a way to create awareness and create more organizations like Highline, Canal, all these things that, like, you can make something out of. There's always opportunity, and no matter what happens, whether it's positive or negative. And it just seems like you've been very just active in the community for so long, and like going to all these places to see where you can play a role in changing things for the better. So like, what is it that makes you think and want to do all of these things? It seems like you're so ingrained in all these things within the community, and do you feel like you've made a lot of headway in creating a better, more just blossoming community here in Aurora? I mean, and also I know that you have like so many connections too, and like, but connections aren't developed just out of nowhere. You have to do the deep dive into communities. So I guess like what is it you've learned about people in community and organizing and just being an agent of change? How does that happen? What's the process like organizing? I mean, kind of like deep dive into community organizing kind of thing.
I think it all starts with relationships and building relationships and understanding what capacity a person or the organization has in order to give what they can give to help you create whatever thing you want to do. But it's all about relationships. It's all about relationships. Going from the relationship and then coming up with an idea that you both can work on, and then going from there. That's what it is. That's what it is. The reason I feel the need to take this step is because we are at a crossroads in House District 42, that we are at a place where we need to go further. I feel as if we've been stymied for whatever reason. I think it's critical that whomever takes the appointment is able to go back to the House District and say, hey, we're in this together. We are in this together. I need your support. I need your ideas. I need your help, because it's our community and we need to feel that it is our community. So every individual that lives in House District 42 is essential to the betterment of our area. And I don't know if that's been, I shouldn't say I don't know. I feel that that has not been a focus for a while, since a few people have had some leadership roles in that, and not able to pull that together. So
there have been like ulterior motives, and we've lost our focus on what's important.
I don't know if we've lost our focus,
it's
Dolan.
I think the breakdown in the network, like we're not communicating with each other effectively.
Correct. And
you feel like you can solve that because you already have relationships and connections, and you've kind of done the work. You understand how things work with organizing.
I believe that I can help create a better House District.
Okay.
Yes, I firmly believe that. And what I've learned about myself is that I need to slow down and listen more carefully to people before I take the next step, because sometimes I'm like, oh, that's what you said, and then go off and try to make things change or help things change without nurturing that and sharing it with others, and instead of like jumping the gun and going without bringing people along with me. Sometimes I do that, so I've learned that about myself.
Yeah, I think that all of us have that issue of, we all think that we have the answers, and it's not. I mean, listening is not easy when you know what your own problems are and what issues you want to resolve, and being able to absorb information and use the information and then as a way to change things it's just hard to do.
It is hard to do.
Yeah.
I also think that when I slow down and think about what was said, think about how that relates to some other things that are happening, being able to weave it together makes every entity that is involved in this piece, like whatever this piece is, and bringing it over to this group and then to this group, there's a connecting piece that helps all of them be stronger and make a better change. It may not be immediate, it may take time, but gradual change in a forward moving is much better than rushing through something to, oh, check it off the box, I got that done.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess we've been kind of just, there's been a big argument over, I mean, I guess since the beginning of time, trickle down versus trickle up, decentralization versus centralization, and it seems as though at this point we're becoming more and more, bigger and bigger piece of the pie, not only with decision making but also with money, is going into a smaller and smaller group of people's hands. And that may not necessarily be bad if it means that like the right policies are put in place and the money is allocated wisely. But I'd say most people would, a lot of people just say that like everyone's voice matters, and the more people you have at the table, the better it is for democracy, community. But then that can turn into anarchy, whatever. But like I don't know, how do we like going forward, create a more inclusive, big tent, big inner circle kind of situation that isn't anarchy and can be actually effective in not only growing the pie, but growing the proportion of the pie for everyone.
I think part of it is to find out what an individual is interested in and can bring to the table. Yes, we need everyone's voice. Do we need everyone's voice in everything that's happening? No. No. We need those who have expertise, which is why it's so critical for whomever is appointed or whomever is a state representative, that they go back to their constituents and say, hey, look, I don't know everything. I know a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and I need help in excelling. So I can get a handle on this to see how this can fit with this. But at this, and so you need people here, you need people here, you need everyone, and you need these people to understand, or at least have a concept that the collective is working forward, but the groups are working on separate things, and that's okay, because the separate things, not everyone can do everything. Not everyone knows everything. So it's critical to have all these working pieces together, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Are there a lot of like think tanks in the greater Denver area, like nonprofits that are working on ideas pertaining to different subjects, whether it be healthcare, whether it be whatever, economics,
I think you can
climate change?
I think especially with climate change.
When you were on the Aurora City Council, for outsourcing intelligence to other groups or organizations or whatever, did you work with organizations out of DC and local area, or was it just scattered all across the country? Or
so if you are a city council member, you have an organization called the National League of Cities, and they take all city council members throughout the United States, and they have meetings, and they have blah blah blah. They do a convention, and there are interests that you can belong to, so you can be a think tank with fellow comrades who are facing the similar issues, and they divide you between large, small, diverse, not so diverse. They divide you in a group that would fit your needs, so you can get a lot of knowledge from that group. So yes, I did participate in the National League of Cities and learned things and brought some things back. And I think the best thing that both Molly Markert and I were able to do,
what was her role?
She was a city council member at the time.
And what years were you in the Aurora City Council?
2011 to 2015.
Oh, okay.
So when we were in Oregon, we brought back a program that allowed us to eventually have the International Affairs Office in the city building. We never had anything like that before, so that was one of the great things that we did. Another thing we did was try to organize food trucks a little bit better, because at the time we were on city council, food trucks were banned from being in the city of Aurora. So we loosened the strings on that and put some criteria on it. But now, I don't know if you notice, there are many more food trucks. And then on Colfax and Chambers, in the old Kmart, the old Kmart parking lot, there is like a food truck haven. I would say there are multiple food trucks now. But that was because Molly and I said, we need to do this. it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for individuals. It's the right thing for small business. It's the right thing for the diverse communities that we have, and it's the right thing for people who are interested in exploring different foods. Because it's concentrated and protected, and they seem to be doing really, really well.
It's
now.
funny that you mentioned that, because I was just at the gym yesterday and I met a guy came up to me and gave me his card, and he's a food vendor, has his own truck, and he's trying to, he already is present in Denver and he wants to move to Aurora, but I guess still Aurora's a little more strict than Denver.
Aurora is a little more strict.
I don't know, why is that?
Because of the restaurant association. There was a heavy influence in the decision making in city council, so it is what it is now, and hopefully it'll loosen up depending on who's in leadership and blah blah blah, if it's something that they're interested in looking at, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it'd be really cool if we could get food trucks like at parks, like here. If there was a food truck here, I would end the interview and we would go eat food at the food truck. Yeah.
I know during the summer, at Del Mar Park, there are food trucks that circle. You know, I think, you know, maybe I don't know what it is like at each of the parks, but
yeah,
I know there are some in Del Mar Park.
So what is it that you would, I guess we talked about it a little bit, but like what's most important to you? Is it climate change? You were talking about water yesterday.
Yes,
we need
water,
because water, we're kind of drying up right now because of climate change. Do you know what's going on with our water? Because I talked to Alison Coombs, who's a current city council member with the city of Aurora, and I guess we're starting to buy more and more water from farmers, but it's getting more expensive because of the scarcity of water. But then I was tuning into one of the city council meetings, and they're working with the state of Colorado. I guess this has been happening since the 1970s. They're creating like artificial water vapor to create more precipitation. Is this all, I mean,
it's a long process.
Does it work, and
yeah, it's
is
a
that
long
getting more
process.
and more expensive?
It is getting more and more expensive because water is the new oil, and possession is key, and being able to have water rights is a scarce commodity here in Colorado, and mostly in the western slope.
Yeah.
From here to California, water rights is just outrageous. Well, and then you look at what's happening in the east, like in the Tennessee area, where they've never been so saturated, and all that water is going to waste, and there isn't a way to preserve that water. It's a global issue. It's a global issue.
What would you do on housing? Because housing has been a really hot topic until recently. It seemed as though the homelessness has become more and more invisible. I don't know if that has anything to do with I don't know if they're just resituating them, or they're actually they're becoming not homeless anymore. But is homelessness, is it continuing to go up? Do you know?
It is continuing to go up, and I believe here in Aurora, now I could be wrong, that the reason that it appears that the homeless situation is diminishing is because they are constantly moved.
Okay.
They and that's not the answer. What it does is just push people someplace else. It doesn't help them. But neither does a lot of the nonprofits. My global thinking for this is to take all the money that is given to all the nonprofits, and there are a ton of nonprofits that are out there that do good work for homeless individuals, or those who are facing, or those who are unhoused. Let's use that word. But it's so specific. Clothing, food, shelter, temporary shelter, vouchers for a hotel, that kind of thing. Shower trucks, like Aurora Warms the Night still has their shower trucks, which are ineffective in the winter because they freeze, so you can't use them during the winter. All good things, right? Because a person who's in-housed needs all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
The money that is put toward each of those things takes away from the large amount of money that is allotted for the unhoused, and it diminishes the effect. If we could find a way to keep all the money together to be more, to more, have more of an impact, and still use the nonprofits for their, without just saying here's a whatever $50,000 for your nonprofit to go do your homeless thing, keeping it here and making it work better here while allowing the nonprofits to still work. A little more control. I don't know.
So, yeah, I mean, when you were in the city council, I'm sure, were you in talks with developers about policy on how we can create more affordable housing?
Yes.
Were there some ideas for incentives for developers?
No,
or figuring out a way to raise more money to create? What do you think of the idea of government in the business of building physical structures for housing? Do you think that is something like the Vienna social housing model? Have you heard of that?
Yes, I have.
What do you think of that?
I think it's a great idea. I think the problem with politics is that it's political.
So you're talking about, just big money interests that kind of
not just or
will not allow something like that to happen. It's just we're the society is based on maximizing profits, and it's just like a zero-sum game. Like if I can't maximize my profits, I refuse to play the game.
Yeah, and sometimes that's unfortunate. You find
is that normal? Did you notice that with developers and just with businesses in general?
What I noticed, Dolan, is that it's not normal. It's like, those are good ideas. Who's going to pay for it? Well, we want you to pay for part of it. Well, the government should put in money. Okay. Where's that going to come from? The city of Aurora, specifically, doesn't have a big coffer. And when I was on city council, the structure of the elected officials, it wasn't a discussion that was entertained.
Yeah, okay. So it just wasn't even a conversation because there were other things.
There were little bits and pieces.
That's because of the political spectrum?
That's why I said the thing about the problem with politics is that it's political.
Yeah. So when you were in office, did you realize that, some elected officials may seem one way politically, but are actually more to one side on the political spectrum, like privately versus publicly? Do you see people who act differently privately than they do in public when you were on the city council?
Not so much.
Okay.
When I was on city council, people were very willing to share their ideas or their yays and nays and the reasons why. And they acted that way on the dais as they did in their private life. There was no spectrum. There was no, They were whom they were.
So they were okay. Well, that's good to know that they were authentic.
That's a good word. They were very authentic. Yes. Now, Now, when it comes to individual personalities and that kind of thing, that's a whole different story, right? Because you always have to try to work with the person no matter what you think of the person. That's a whole different thing. But
is that hard to regulate when you're... Is that hard to look past the person's personality and see their policy for what it is without looking at their personality?
Not when you're trying to make good policy for the right reason. No, it's not. In fact, as long as a person is, and I'll use your word because I like it, authentic, it's a lot easier. You can come with an idea, know pretty much what the objection is going to be, and then you can take that and work it out, or at least have ideas that, okay, he or she is going to say this about that, so I might be able to combat.
It sounds like it's the media's fault. The media creates a hyperbole around the narrative, and then that's like creating a divisiveness, actually increases viewership.
And do you think that's what it is, or do you think that it's just the climate that we're in right now?
It might be a little bit of both.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the media perpetuates it, but I also think that we've gotten to the point of why ever this has happened, but the pendulum does swing. It does, and it settles and never stays that way. It's good to have controversy because it keeps you... It should keep you alert and aware, and keeping you from being like a sleepy politician. I mean, it's good. It's good to have controversy. You grow. Mm-hmm. Your city grows, your state grows, your own individual personality grows. It's good to have that. It's unsettling when it happens, but it's good. But in this climate, it's harder to come to a settling point in this climate, and we've let that pendulum go too far both ways. We've the all or nothing.
I don't really watch mainstream media anymore. Mm-hmm. Do you?
Unfortunately.
You do?
Yeah. I try not to pay too much attention to it, but Phil is real.
Is it becoming... What's happening with the pendulum?
It's being split. And
Even
it's
more?
going this way.
Even more?
I think so.
Is Trump going to run?
He canceled his thing yesterday. He was supposed to have a media blah 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 in.
Do you think Joe Biden should run? Do you think he's doing a good job? His approval ratings are plummeting. They're around what's same as Trump, right?
I think he's doing a really good job with the mess that he has.
Why do you think his approval rating is so low? Is it caused by the media?
Well, I think, like you said earlier, it's partly the media, partly the
Omicron. COVID's raging still.
I don't even think it's COVID. I think it's the media, but yet it's the individuals. We're becoming so individualized that the collective good of the group is almost non-existent. In my opinion, I think. And that's frustrating because that's not what's best for the community.
Yeah. How do we get to find a good medium between collectivism and individualism? Because the country was founded on individualism, getting away from the government.
But there was still a collective thought process, right?
Are you for Medicare for all?
I would like to see that, yes. And the reason is because...
Do you think we can afford it? basically we can just keep printing as much as we want as long as the
Yeah.
U.S. dollar
Yeah.
is the world's reserve currency.
Yeah. Yeah.
Currency, right?
Yeah.
Is that do you see it like that? That's how I see it.
That, it's proving to be that way, isn't it? That we just can keep on printing money and doing what we think is best. What I think about Medicare for all is that it's a great concept, and I would love to see it.
Did you
Can we
support
afford-
Colorado Care?
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
You voted for it.
Yes, I did. I did. I did. My kids do not
Colorado Care was universal health care. It was on the ballot, I don't know, 4 years ago. It didn't pass.
No, it didn't pass. But my kids don't have health insurance. So, but their thing is that, oh, it's too expensive to get it, even with Colorado Care. So it's too expensive. The Obamacare was just too expensive for them for the dollars that they were bringing in, especially when you have student loans.
Yeah.
So they're, survival. What's more important? Well, I may need health insurance, but I have to pay my student loan or that.
In Colorado, it's not Obamacare. It's
Right.
its own exchange.
Right.
Right. So, have we made improvements on that? Are the premiums going down? Deductibles going down?
I don't know. That's one thing I don't know.
How many kids do you have in Colorado?
I have one in Colorado and one in Idaho.
Where does your
He
kid live
lives
in
with
Colorado?
me. He lives with us.
Because of housing prices or through the roof?
Housing, yeah, and he struggled.
How old is he?
He's 40. And he struggled when, after my
Does
second
he have a
husband.
job?
Quit interrupting me. Yes.
Okay, good.
He
Because
does
I don't
a
have.
job.
I'm completely unemployed. That's why I can do this. And I'm almost 40, so
Okay.
I'm not trying to attack your son.
No. He
Sorry for
struck.
interrupting.
That's all right. That's all right. So after my second husband died so unexpectedly, the family kind of took a fall. Both of my kids went through a period of.
Oh, so your son who lives with you now is your husband who died's dad? Oh.
No, they just loved him so much that they just were like, devastated. They were both devastated. And they both got involved with drugs and alcohol. And, my older son struggled one way, my younger son struggled a different way. And eventually finally Pat has recovered and is a recovering alcoholic and drug addict and doing really well for over a year. But it's taken that much time. He was in 8th grade when that happened, and it's taken him that much time to get to the point where he
was relapsing.
He kept relapsing, yes, and each time it got worse. But anyway, that was a struggle of its own. And my older son struggled. He still struggles. He doesn't relapse. He just struggles in a different way. It's been really, really hard.
Well, it's a crazy world we live in. It's not easy.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, and at the time
I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm not. I would think that everyone's kids would be struggling right now with what the world's just crazy.
Yes, and when they were younger, because this happened 25 years ago. I am terrible with anniversaries. I barely remember birthdays. I was always bad with that. But things that happened, that I still remember July 11, 2020, because I'm not through the process yet. But once my second husband died and tried to make a settlement with the hospital, which was...
What was July 11, 2020?
That's when I was attacked.
Oh.
That's still very fresh for me because I'm still...
Do you think about it every day?
I don't think about it every day. I'm reminded about it every day because of my head and because of my finger. But, I'm like, I can move this a little bit, and I can almost hold an onion and cook with it. So it is what it is. It is what it is. And I'm very fortunate that I don't have arthritis, because I'm sure I would not be able to do any, so
everything is relative.
Everything is relative. That's right. That's right. And one of my favorite things to do is cooking. When I have fundraisers at the house, I do all the cooking and the catering. I very seldom bring food in from outside.
Yeah, Debi used to host our HD42 meetings for the Democratic Party, and you arrive and the whole thing is a smorgasbord full of all kinds of goodies. So right when I get there, the first thing she asks is, what do you want to drink? Very good host. So growing up in Denver, right?
I grew up in Denver.
Tell us a little bit about that. So what was that like?
That was really interesting, because I grew up during not so much in elementary school, but by the time I was in 6th grade, which is when elementary school ended, when I was younger, that was the beginning of the busing, the segregated busing and people moving across the city to go to a school. It was crazy. So
wasn't Denver a big part of the civil rights movement?
Well, I can tell you that when I was in 6th grade, many times we were held back. We were not released, because right across the street from where I went to school, there was a gang fight.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Lincoln. Graduated from Lincoln.
Where is that?
On Federal and Evans.
So like
I went to Skank.
Of Jefferson?
Yeah. Went to Skank Elementary School, and now it's Skank Community School or something like that. Then to Kepner Junior High, and there were projects right across the street. I can remember walking home one time, and there was an individual who was on a stump of the front door, banging on the door while he was being surrounded by a gang of a different ethnicity group, beating him with chains, walking by that and then running home. It happened lots of times.
You grew up in kind of a rough area, or low income?
Where I was removed. I lived like 6, maybe 7 blocks from the middle school. So Mississippi, if you crossed the north side of Mississippi.
Because now there really are no projects in Denver. I mean, there are really no ghettos except for maybe Colfax area, but other than that,
there is a Project Home right behind the school where I went, and then I lived on the south side of Mississippi. So where I lived, where I lived was a lot different than where I went to school. So I crossed, I don't know, an invisible boundary. I don't know, but yeah.
It was just kind of a mix of everything.
Mm-hmm. The school was, yeah, but the neighborhood I was in was predominantly white. We were not middle class, but not
okay.
We were okay.
Worried about like when your next meal was.
Yeah, we
you weren't on food stamps, that kind of thing.
Correct. I was fortunate. But some of my friends.
Did you play outside? Like when
Yes.
I was a kid, I would. Yeah,
all the time, riding my bike.
it was the best. Those were the best days of my life.
Yeah. Roller skating, riding my bike. Roller skating with the little keys.
Were those the best days of your life? They were the best days of my life. Like between the ages of like, I don't know, 8 and 13, it's not even close. Just by far the best days of my life. Because there were no worries.
Right, I was going to say.
You know, you get home from school, you go outside and play, and you don't have to worry about homework because it's not like, it wasn't rigorous yet.
Right.
School.
Yeah, they were fun times. Yeah. And then my dad left when I was in middle school or junior high, and those became dark days. But you know, we all have bullshit that happens in our families. So anyway, so yeah, those were good times.
And you stopped talking to your dad, or?
I did for a long time.
How old were you when you came back in your life? Who rekindled the relationship? Was it you or him?
I did.
Why?
Much to my chagrin, because my mother was very insistent that I do it.
Oh, your mother had been in talks with him.
Nope.
Oh.
Nope.
Then why did she want you to talk to him if she doesn't want to talk to him?
One day you will regret not reaching out to him.
And he was in the Denver area?
Oh, yeah. He
Are you
lived on
glad?
8th and Steel. He's still there.
Oh. And do you still...
We do
what was it
now.
like?
What was it like before?
Rekindling your relationship with him.
It was rocky. It was really rocky.
You didn't really want to, but...
No, but after his second wife died, he started coming around. So now we talk a lot. We go for walks. My brother and I meet him at his home, and we go for a walk every Friday. Except we didn't do it this Friday. He didn't want to go out in the snow, so we're postponing it to Monday morning. So.
Oh, well, that's good because it gave you time to meet with me.
Yeah. No, we go in the morning. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 9 o'clock. No, 10 o'clock. I'm sorry. It was 9 o'clock in the summer, and then it started getting chilly, so we moved it to 10 o'clock. But it's not like all roses but it's lovely now. There is no tension, and
everyone's kind of surrendered at this point, right? It's kind of as you get older, it's just like, just go for the darn walk. It's okay, right?
Yeah, it's okay for the walk, and you know he is 89, living on his own, still has his mental faculties all intact. And the only thing is that he's getting stiff, and he still plays golf. And
is he a good golfer?
No, but he likes to get out there and swing it with his buddies, and that you know, that's good. It's good for him to do that. And yeah.
Wow. I kind of want to go over a little bit about city council, and I guess we've gone over some of it, but were there any other like major things that happened during your time on the Aurora City Council that really just drama, like really big issues? Because I wasn't really around then. I'm just curious to know if there's any long-lasting policy that affects Aurora today from when you were on the council. And then after that, I want to talk about the gun problem what's been happening recently with schools and stuff.
Okay, so the major event that happened when I was on city council was the theater shooting. It was in the first year of being in city council, and we tried to...
For those of you who don't remember, it was a national issue. The movie The Dark Knight came out, and the guy, I think his name is James Holmes, went into the movie theater dressed up as the Joker and shot up the movie theater. How many? 15 people died? Something like that? 14 people died, okay. And he ended up pleading insane, right? And he's in a mental institution now. Yeah. So I actually, I grew up in Connecticut, and my ex-girlfriend's from Newtown, Connecticut, where that mass shooting happened with the kid going into the kindergarten classroom and shooting up the classroom. My first ever girlfriend is from that town, so it's a Pleasantville. You would never think that it's a wealthy, affluent town, churches everywhere, everything everyone says is right, so it can happen anywhere. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It can happen anywhere. So at the time, I was on the policy committee, and I was in charge. I was the chair of the policy committee, and on city council. So council has different policy committees. So this policy was is the policy committee, right? The let's make a policy for this or that or whatever.
They still have the policy committee?
I don't think it's called that anymore. I think I'm a little removed. So at the time, it was like, okay, we need to do something. We need to have a little bit tighter gun control in the city of Aurora, which means that maybe we want to limit guns being able to come inside the chambers. And oh my God, just the makeup of the city council at the time was just they were no, we're not going to do that. This is, it's unfortunate that
so there's a real presence of Second Amendment rights in Aurora.
Very.
And it still exists today?
It still exists today, and I don't think it's larger. I think it's louder. I don't think it's larger.
So nothing really could change? So it's stuff at the state level changed, though.
Right. And because Aurora is local control, not everything that happens at the state, it can affect the city. It's kind of weird.
So some of the state laws that were passed around guns weren't applicable to Aurora?
Because we're a home rule city.
Home rule city.
Yeah, which
I'm gonna
means,
have to look that up.
all of those, what's the word I'm looking for? I'll think of it. But some of the things that it just doesn't, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on a word and it's driving me crazy.
Around guns or state versus municipal?
About being transparent in things. If someone commits what one person would think is not ethical or is against what you believe is right, a right thing to do, we take care of our own, so there is no investigation or anything. It's very frustrating, but that's a personal thing that I have. So anyway, what was passed that, like schools were able to limit guns in and around the area, that at one time a parent couldn't drive to a parking lot of a school and have a gun in the car at one point. I think that's changed again, but that happened right after that, and gun laws are hard, and they're hard to stick.
Well, my whole thing with guns is I guess at the individual level it's good to have protection. Like if someone breaks into your house, it's nice to have a gun for protection, but like the argument of like the government churning against the people, well, I don't know how that holds up when, so if everyone has a gun, but then the government has nuclear weapons, and then there's the whole thing where like if another country tries to invade us, we all have guns, but I guess that doesn't really, no one's going to try to invade us anyway because we have shields that protect us. and airspace and that kind of thing. But I don't know how much of that argument holds up. And it seems to me that most war takes place economically and over cyber these days anyway. But at the end of the day, it seems as though if you don't have a strong military, then you're not going to have a strong currency and strong country. Because the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency because of our military is the strongest military in the world. I mean, do you agree with that? Or
pretty much. Yeah. And it's stronger when you have better leadership that allows them to
so what's your take on guns then?
My take on guns is that I'm going to way back when I was in PTA, I have a friend who is still a friend, and her comment was, you need to take all the guns, melt them down, and use them for our roads, because they will stay. We wouldn't have to go back and repair them.
So you're for banning like semi-automatics and bump stocks and magazines and all that?
You know, my thing is that even if you're a gun collector, why would you want to collect a weapon of destruction like that? But you know, I don't have the capacity to think beyond that. I don't have or the desire to want to know what goes through a person's head that says this is okay to have this, because I don't believe it. So after my second husband died, I was dating a guy off and on, and I knew he was conservative. I didn't know how conservative he was until one time I went over to his home, and he had a gun range in his basement.
That's awesome.
I'm like, no, I can't do this. I'm sorry.
Oh, it was a game changer?
It was, yeah, it was.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, so you really are serious about it if you're going to break up with a guy that you like over it.
Yeah. I don't see a purpose, because it ultimately
it's like a therapy
is going to be
for some people.
Well, that's great. Go out to the range and shoot as much as you want. Go outside, find an outside range. I don't care. Shoot.
Yeah.
But you don't need it in your home. You don't need it in your home. And you don't need to store those kinds of guns in your home. You know, find a safe locker in a gun range place or someplace. You know, if you want it, you can own it, but you don't need it in your home. It doesn't belong in your home.
Okay. Have you been following the city council with the youth violence protection program that was spearheaded by Lawson? It's such a I see it as total government waste. And
it's inadequate. When I was on city council, we had a group that was called AGRIP, and I can't remember exactly what it stands for. Aurora Gang Reduction, Intervention, Prevention, I think is what it was. And that was funded by some of the red light money. And that
what's red light money?
Remember the red lights? Maybe you weren't here when we had red lights.
Oh my God, I'll never forget. Mississippi and Chambers, right over there. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I was scooting up to the red light, pretty much stopped, didn't stop, but it looked like I stopped. And then I took a right-hand turn. All the lights, the light bulbs flashing, flash. I thought the apocalypse was happening. The inflection point happened. And then I was like, that's it, it's over. Like and $300 down the drain.
Was it $300?
I think it was 60. Around 100 or at least 100. It was really ridiculous. I'm so glad they got rid of that. We're talking about the cameras. You do something wrong, they take the big flash, and then everyone crashes because the flash is so big. Everyone's like, what just happened? And then you get it in the mail, the photograph and says you owe gazillions of dollars over nothing, and they're taking pictures even if you weren't breaking the law. Every time you go through, the big flash goes off.
So I disagree with you. I think it was look what's happening now with
Wait, you're for the red light?
I always was for the red light. Sorry, Dolan, but
I can't
when
vote for you. Just kidding.
So,
I haven't made up my mind yet.
So look what's happening in our city now. We have a lack of police officers. We have cars, people who are driving cars at obnoxiously.
Oh yeah,
high
the
speed.
drag racing. Everyone's
And all of that kind of stuff. There's a lack of resources.
The guys. They think they're hot shit just because they're
And
going
I
a
would
million miles an
argue-
hour, and their car is louder than everything.
I would argue if there were red lights, that would be curtailed, and I think it.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I so appreciate the programs that were put in place with that money. And
I'm sure it raised probably a lot of revenue.
it didn't raise a lot of revenue
Oh.
because they were only in a certain area. Now, if they were spread out, I don't know. And to council member Berzin's credit, Ward 3 had the most red lights, and they weren't in any very limited anywhere else.
Oh.
So to her credit, I understand why it was not a good thing, because they were all in Ward 3. Not all, most. All but 2, I think, were in Ward 3. Anyway, if it was spread out, I think it would have been much more equitable and not profitable, but equitable, and would have been easier for, in my opinion, residents to say, yes, let's keep them. But the dollars, going back to AGRIP, as I was saying when I was on council, we had a gang reduction, prevention, intervention group that the individuals that ran it were former gang members. They went into the schools, they worked with the students, they were teachers, parents, principals, community members. Anybody could refer a student to this program anonymously. Those individuals would go and start talking to kids. And it was a great program. What's happening now? Okay, so we have a place to bring kids, and that's good. Kids need a place to go.
Well, where are the places that they're being brought to?
And,
recreation centers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's good
organization, churches, whatever.
Yeah. It's good to have places for kids to go. I applaud that. But that's not...
Why don't you just give the money to the schools and then they can implement the programs? Like, more funding for sports, music, art, more funding for just recreation and like a chess club. Like, get the kids a bunch of chess boards. Get the chess club going. Develop a bunch of clubs. Have you ever heard of Clubhouse? Just throw them on Clubhouse. That's the problem, though. The social media is.
Yeah, we're not talking about social media. We're talking about physical things that kids.
But what I don't understand is, how does all this stuff happen with all this technology we have? Everyone, 80% of teenagers these days has a smartphone.
I can't answer that.
I don't understand how, like, guns are going, like, guns are ablazing. When we have this magical thing in your hand that gives you basically everything, why would you want to shoot someone up if you've got everything at the palm of your hand? I guess I'm talking from a standpoint of privilege, because probably a lot of these kids don't have smartphones. But I don't know. Do poor people have smartphones? Seems like they do.
I think, okay, when you look at a phone, it's different than it used to be, and people need ways to communicate, no matter how much they make or how little they make. They need ways to communicate, especially when they're receiving services. So my answer to that would be they probably have some way of communicating. Okay. And that has to be part of their existence. It has to be, because you cannot get any kind of services without a way of being communicated with. So there's your answer. Are they all smartphones? Probably not. Do they all have something that they
Like a
can use to communicate? Yes. Going back to the shootings, it's not. Yes, they need things to do. They need places to go. But
and they have to feel important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So it's not just putting them in a place where they can play whatever, or shooting hoops or whatever. There's more to it than that. They need to have a human connection with an adult who is a positive role model in their life. And money that is used for clubs and blah 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 is not the answer. It's not the answer. And the schools, for God's sakes, the schools can't take on any more stuff. They can't. I worked in the Aurora public schools for 18 years.
So is it too expensive to have like one-on-one counseling? Is that counseling is too expensive?
I don't even think that counseling is the answer. I think
it's still a mystery.
No, I don't think it's a mystery. I think kids need mentors. They need mentors, and some need counseling in addition. They should all get the counseling that they need, but they all need an adult that they can communicate with and connect with. And yes, sometimes that's their parents. But how many times did you go to your parents when you were like...
I ran away from my parents.
Okay, well,
my
see,
parents
there's your answer. So
dysfunctional.
Each child needs someone in their life that they can connect with that is in addition to their parent. Yeah. And we have a lack of that. We have a tremendous lack of that. And I think that would help. It's not going to solve, because what are gangs? It's a group of people who have a common interest and they feel secure with that group. That's what a gang is, right? So we replace that gang with their own gang of mentors and students, and then play the games, and then do whatever, and go wherever.
Yeah, so just make sure it's structured.
Yes.
It's a crazy world we live in. And I feel very disconnected. I have no friends. I have 0 friends. How am I supposed to make friends if I don't have friends? That's the problem. No one has friends, because everyone, I don't know why people don't have friends, because we're individualistic. But.
Yes, too individualistic and too tied into our social media.
No.
Don't you think? I mean,
yeah.
You go out to dinner and you see the adults and the kids on their phones.
It's just a shame, because like if I'm friends with someone, or if I have a girlfriend and I'm not checking off all the boxes, she just has to turn on her phone, swipe a few times. Oh, yeah, there's a good one. There's like, almost, it's like there's too much choice. It's like if my friend does one little thing wrong, we'll throw him out.
It's the all or nothing world we live in.
Because we have too much choice with we have everything at our fingertips.
Yeah.
So our expectations have gone up.
I don't have to settle. I don't have to settle, because I'm sure I can find something or someone that will fill all the boxes. And I will just keep looking until that happens, and I don't really care, because it's all about me.
Yeah.
And what kind of relationship is that?
Yeah.
How can you build a relationship when you're all about yourself?
So what separates you from everyone else? Why should we vote for you?
Because
What else have
I
you
could-
done besides Aurora City Council? What other jobs?
So
And that's a big deal, Aurora City Council. That's like my dream job.
I was the community engagement advocate for Aurora Public Schools, building relationships, helping kids, that kind of thing. And when I retired, they changed the position. I also I put on the graduations and the top 10 ceremony and communicated with the parents about all of those kinds of things, and put on the retirement dinners for the staff of Aurora Public Schools. So I did that for 18 years.
Wow, 18 years.
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Having the same job for 18 years, I can't imagine. The longest job I ever had was like, I think 3.5 years.
It morphed, but I stayed with Aurora Public Schools because I believed in Aurora Public Schools. What really frustrated me about the school system, though, is that when I was in PTA back in the late 80s, early 90s, the thing that was in the forefront was we got to get ready for the diversity that's coming our way. Because, at the time, predominantly white, and, blah, 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 all of that. And
Aurora was a lot more white?
PTA, okay, so Colorado Parent Teacher Association.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're screaming that there would be a diverse number of individuals who are growing up in our school systems. They will become adults, and we need to be prepared to change the way we deliver our educational systems, our education, because kids learn different. And we were screaming that, and Aurora never took hold of that. And it was very sad to work for an organization that I knew that what was trying to be professed and taught, and that parents were coming with good ideas, and
it's just hard to execute on good ideas, right?
Well, it's hard when it's not met with acceptance. When you look at the leadership of Aurora Public Schools, it was predominantly white for a very, very, very long time. Very long time.
So, yeah, I mean, what do you think of the curriculum and the history that's taught? And I mean, I guess that's decided at the state and federal level, right? I mean, do we have that right? Did you have experience like sitting in on school boards and?
I did when I was in PTA, and I did a little bit when I worked for Aurora Public Schools, but that was harder because you needed to be further removed from the decision making because you worked with the school. Sometimes I would present in front of them because I was working on a program that they wanted to know about or whatever. But when I was in PTA, we were there all the time, all the school board meetings. And then we would go, this was at the time when relationships were easier to build, even though you didn't like the individual's policies, you could still like the individual, right? So we would...
Now you just don't like any of it, right? I mean...
Me?
No, I'm just talking about generally speaking, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry,
now it's like, oh, no, I don't want to spend time with you. I don't want to get to know you. I don't want to do anything with you because you don't think all the way that I do. And I am the only one who's right. And that has led to our demise. And that's one of the reasons why you should vote for me, because I believe that we need to build relationships in order to make what's best for our city. And I've already started with many relationships. I have many relationships throughout.
So with the school board meetings,
yes,
how often do they meet?
They meet
twice
a month, and they talk about curriculum and what's happening. school board members really don't control anything. It's
It's the administration.
the administration has
Kind
a
of like
lot
the
of
city council, right?
in Aurora.
Yeah.
In Aurora.
Yeah.
City of Denver is different because it's Mayor Strong. We are city manager Strong.
Well, that's why we got to get Jim Twombly on here, right?
He's a nice man.
What do you think of? So you have you know Jim Twombly?
I do.
Do you think he's doing a good job?
I think he's doing a decent job. I totally loved Skip Noe.
He was
When I
the
was
one
a-
before him.
Yes.
Was
Because he was
Skip Noe
not,
from Aurora? Or?
no, he came from
So most of these guys come from
Texas.
outside.
Yeah. Skip had the ability to confront a council member when they were overstepping their bounds and say, this is wrong. You need to check yourself. Whether it was on policy or behavior or whatever. That's what,
Was he totally nonpartisan?
he tried very, very hard to be, yes.
But you did notice some partisanship a little bit.
I knew him. So I knew what his policy, I knew what his,
Yeah. Political leanings.
yeah. But between he and Steve Hogan working together, they worked together. They worked really hard together. And therefore, city council members didn't have so much leeway to go off and be crazy and...
Oh, so you're saying that your argument nowadays is that the city council members have too much sway? It's turned into a whole he said, she said, high school popularity contest.
What I'm saying is that the relationship that is built between the city manager and the current mayor is critical to the direction that the city council takes. When there's no relationship building, city council members can go off and do what they want to do and try to set any kind of hilly-nilly type of
So
policy.
you think Kaufman and Twombly are kind of butting heads?
I think Coffin
But
that's
with
with everybody.
Yeah.
But I really believe that the best working relationship that I have ever experienced was when I was on city council, even though I had colleagues that I despised. I despised them, their policy. I've always the person's policies that I hated the most. I had lunch. We went to dinner once a month to just sit down and talk. I still didn't get to the point where I could tolerate her, but I sat down with her and tried to understand. I did support one of her policies, and it was because I had the relationship with her to understand where it was coming from. Most of her policies or her resolutions or whatever, I also knew where it was coming from in here because I spent so much time with her. But there was one that I'm like, oh, you're on target here. So I know it's coming from here, and so I supported her. But
wow.
Yeah,
I want to go deeper into the schools, but because I know that people just education's number one. It seems like
education is number one. What happens at the state level or at the city council level is not does not directly affect schools usually, because again, they are autonomous. Even with a state school board, they are autonomous. They can make up their own, as long as it's within the CRL, Colorado Rules and...
So the federal government, though, has a lot of control over the curriculum at the local level?
The federal government does not write the curriculum.
It's the local school board?
No. There are publishers that write the curriculum. The school district has a curriculum review committee. They bring in different pieces. They bring in samples of curriculum from the different publishers, and then they make their decision. They're not, what they're told is what they need to teach.
Who elects that board?
What board?
Decides
the curriculum board? It's usually volunteer from the school district. They get the,
like parents?
There's usually a parent or two on it, yes. But it's usually okay, so it's, let's say they're going into science and they're looking at science curriculum. They'll get the heads of the science departments, at least two of them, to, they'll ask around and say, do you want to be on the curriculum selection committee? And they'll get those people together along with a parent or two, and they'll review the curriculum. They'll make the recommendation, and then the school board selects. And they'll have a presentation usually. This is what we found. This is, this is what we're looking for, and then the school board asks questions, and then they make the decision. But they present to the school board the curriculum that they feel is the best.
Seems like a pretty good process, actually.
It is a good process, as long as you get people who are open-minded enough to say, we want the real science, we want and because there are our history curriculum is being rewritten again.
Critical race theory and all that, is that what you're referring to?
No, just rewritten to eliminate more of the angst that we had during the Civil War. The shit that happened during the Civil War. It's all being rewritten again. So if you can find a publisher that is true, and the curriculum committee selects that, then you're okay.
I'm guessing a lot of these publishers are out of New York and Washington.
You're guessing wrong.
California.
Texas.
Oh, interesting. Oh gosh, we've been talking forever here. This is the longest conversation I've had ever, I think, on my YouTube channel. But is there anything else that you would like to tell? Actually, no. We have to do the lightning round.
Oh my God. What time is it?
I promise you it'll take
3:19.
2 minutes.
I have to call somebody at 3:30.
2 minutes.
Okay.
What's your favorite book?
The current book that I'm reading.
Oh yeah, we went over that.
Yeah.
We don't have to, whatever.
Okay.
It's a fiction book. I don't like fiction that much.
You don't have to like fiction. The one that I picked up, the one that one of the PCPs sent me was 9.9%. The 9.9%, and I started reading it. It's about the definition of the 9.9% affluent individuals in our country, and how we got to that point. It's very fascinating. I'll let you read it after I'm done, but I am enjoying it.
9% of the population is actually
9%.
considered to be affluent.
Mm-hmm. And what that really means. Yeah, it's very eye-opening, and I appreciated him for sending it to me. Okay, next question.
Who's your favorite women's civil rights leader? Or it could just be, who's your favorite civil rights leader too? You can always pass. I forgot to tell you the rules too. This is really hard because you have to just think instantly. So if you can't think of something, you just pass if you want.
Okay, I'll pass and come back to that one.
Okay. If you could live in any state aside from Colorado, what state would it be?
I can't think of another state that I would like to live in. I like visiting all the states, but I love being in Colorado because of the weather.
Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden?
I'm a Joe Biden guy.
Biden?
Mhm.
Okay. What's your favorite color?
I don't have a favorite color. I hate that question. I like. Okay.
I know
what,
it's really
What
yeah.
what color do I not like? Probably a bright orange would be. But I have a shirt that I love that is bright orange. So.
Okay. Who's your favorite politician of all time?
Of all time, my favorite politician when I was young, it was JFK.
JFK?
Yeah.
Did you
And
have
I would
Did you have a crush on him?
Yes, I had a crush on him.
It was so unfair. All the girls had a crush on him. Everyone.
But I would, my cousin from South Dakota, we would go to South Dakota quite frequently, and we would talk about him and his policies. And then I don't know how we always did this. We always went from JFK to what was happening in Colorado with the Olympics, and are they going to come and destroy all of the mountainside, which it never happened. But
I'm so glad that Denver always rejected the Olympics.
yes,
Most cities are like, we want the Olympics so bad because
Yeah.
it gives a bump to the economy, but we're too good for the Olympics.
and they had that bandwagon again, like 2 years ago. Was it 2 years
Yeah.
ago that they like started talking about it again? I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Who's your favorite? This is a tough one. Who's your favorite philosopher of all time?
It is a tough one. I could do the easy one. Deepak Chopra.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like him.
Deepak Chopra. Yeah.
Chop.
He became famous
Yeah.
through Oprah. Pretty
Did
much.
he? Is that how he became?
Oh, did he become famous just
Well,
through
I
you?
knew him when
Yeah.
I was much before Oprah, but
Huh.
yeah.
And
Chopra.
it's
Anyway,
just Deepak Chopra.
it's Chopra.
Because I was on I'm
Yeah.
addicted to Clubhouse. Please go on to Clubhouse.
Anyway,
Join Aurora Ideas. But yeah, I'm trying to think of one last one. I can't think of anything else. So
okay, I know we
yeah,
talked
you
a
got
lot.
through it, and thanks for meeting with me. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it, and good luck.
Thank you.
Debbie Hunter Holen, January 10th is the big decision. It's going to be virtual January 10th for deciding who will serve that seat, House District 42 vacancy, until November. And so like so if you finish like in third or fourth place, are you still gonna run?
Yes, I
Okay.
said I'm in it to win
Okay.
it. So
Nice.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell the people of House District 42, City of Aurora,
I would like-
State of Colorado?
I just want the residents of 42 to know that they can always call me or email me or reach out somehow, because I'll eventually always pick up the phone.
Great.
720-229-9165.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, it's a beautiful day. I'm
It
gonna
is.
probably go for a walk after this, and yeah, thanks guys.
Thank
Peace.
you.